During my campaign, I promised financial integrity. National, state, local economic events throughout the recession resulted in our current fiscal dilemma. There's no doubt about that. And over the past 4 years, cuts coupled with prudent increases in revenue could have put us in a different position than we are in today. Utilization of reserves to balance budgets long-term is merely a quick fix and not a solution. What is an override? Well, very simply, it's an increase in the amount the city can levy in taxes above and beyond its maximum levy limit. In our case, the additional revenue would be used to balance the FY12 budget and provide consistent public and school services. An override would be a one-time fix that will then allow us to better manage future budgets. What the override would do is actually increase our tax levy to give us sufficient revenue to match our current expenses. And you'd be able to manage your budget a whole lot better beyond that. Just a few interesting quotes that have come upon me over the last year and a half. In April, the Mass Department of Revenue did a financial management review. And they told me in that review that upon taking office, I was faced with two substantial fiscal issues. The underfunded medical insurance trust, the second issue being the budget. In July of 10, the Mass Department of Revenue, the Director of Accounts, he said he felt compelled to comment briefly on our FY 2012 position. The city is using approximately $1.2 million in one-time revenues. That's what they're using this year to balance the budget. The loss of this revenue, coupled with an unknown financial future and local aid, should be of concern to the city, and thus efforts should be made in the FY12 budget process to address that. We've done a lot of things, and I'll hit on some of them as we move along. In FY10 audit, Scanlon and Associates, and the actual city audit, Tom Scanlon said, and I quote, "The practice of using non-recurring reserves to fund recurring expenditures and utilizing receipts reserved in excess of amounts collected will have a financial impact on the city. You cannot sustain yourself long-term this way." I was called last week by Standard & Poor's, our bond rating agency, to go through fairly lengthy, probably an hour and a half discussion on the city's financial situation. One of their questions, very pointed, was the city able to remedy the structural imbalance in the FY 2011 budget? My response is the following: we're currently cutting the budget, but we're facing a $1.2 million deficit. I am committed to rebuilding the fiscal health of the community and will not commit depleted reserves to the budget. Furthermore, the Department of Revenue is cautioned to not utilize reserves, but rather stay focused on building reserves as a way to strengthen the financial condition of the city. With that, I have placed a Prop 2.5 question on the ballot for June 21st, asking for an override of $1.2 million to balance the budget. If the question does not pass, I'll be forced to make significant cuts to city departments and staggering cuts to the school system. This is just a snapshot of our free cash from 2008 to 2011. Over the past 4 years, we've used nearly all of our reserves to fund operating expenses. You can see in 2008 we had a little over $930,000. It rose in 2009, and now we're down in 2011. We're a free cash of about $163,000. It's like paying your mortgage with your savings account. Sooner or later you run out, and you either have to find more income or sell the house. And I'm telling you right now, I'm doing this because I don't want to sell the house. I don't want to sell the house. A city in good financial health has 6% of their budget in reserves. We have 0.015. In December of 2009, more than $1.8 million was transferred from reserves to pay the bills. And in this fiscal year, through special legislation, we utilized $1.2 million to balance the budget. Now, the average tax bill after the override. North Adams currently enjoys one of the lowest tax bills in the state. The man to my left has a lot to do with that. I will certainly give credit where credit is due. But this will not change, even with an override. If you look, North Adams' average tax bill will still be lower than surrounding and comparable communities. The average single home value of $134,000 will increase by $230 annually to $442 a week. If you look at those are communities that are near us and kind of socioeconomically like us, that are in our Holy Oak and walking away. This shows the average tax bill as a percentage of median family income. North Adams has a higher than average population of low-income residents, and as a percentage of median family income, your tax bill after an override will still be lower than surrounding and comparable communities. If you look at the percentages, a little over, maybe about 3.7%. Adams is a little over 4, and you see it just steps up all the way to Holyoke over 6.5% with median candidate. These are reductions in state aid. This is what Councilor Bond was talking about. I have to correct him. We are at 42% of state aid right now. But if you look at the chart, in 2009, we're receiving almost $21 million in state aid. In 2012, it's just a little over 17.5, about 17.7. So for too long, we relied heavily on state aid to balance our budget. And the state can no longer provide levels of funding we once knew. In FY9, state aid represented 53% of our overall revenues. This current budget year, state aid is only 45% of our overall revenues, some $3.2 million less. And we've held this problem at bay by using reserves, and the reserves are gone. So, a successful, Mr. Cardamino mentioned earlier that I didn't have the guts to make cuts. Well, a successful 2.5 override would fund the budget as I presented to council a week or so ago. But it would include the following cuts: Commissioner of Public Safety, Assistant Building Inspector, Electrician that we have in the budget, my administrative office, 4 part-time positions, a library position. If we're level funding our pensions after negotiation with the North American Contributory Retirement Board, council salaries have been taken away, council expenses. A payroll clerk, the payroll for the city, that position will be eliminated from the treasurer's office. Plumbing inspector stipend will be gone. Parks maintenance will be down, taking $10,000 out of parks maintenance. Tourism and promotional activities will lose $10,000, and board stipends will go away. That's $360,000 in total cuts. 7 full and part-time positions, council salaries, 4 stipends, and parks and tourism dollars. The school cuts that we've made represent 8.5 teachers, 2 full-time administrators, 4 teacher assistants, 3 paraprofessionals, 1 technology staff person, and 1 full-time custodian. Those are proposed cuts. The reallocation of resources total close to $800,000. Reduction in the school budget is $144,000 or so. The school choice money that was mentioned a couple of weeks ago, $900,000, is really $813,000. The superintendent and I spoke about this, and he has allocated $360,000 in FY12 to preserve some of the educational services, particularly the special education services that we would stand to lose. He's also earmarked $360,000 of that choice account for FY 2013 to preserve what he's preserving now. So basically, we sustain that for 2 years. The rest of the school choice money, approximately a couple $100,000, will be held in reserve as we anticipate further special education issues, either residential placements or those sorts of things. So that money will be held in advance. Resulting impact: loss of elementary foreign language, less classroom support, Title I services, and reduction in special education services. That's very, very important because 26% of our kids are special at some level, special education students. Reduced plant maintenance, loss of and honor Spanish, and increased classroom sizes. Now, Plan B. Everybody's been interested in Plan B. What if? If the override fails, the city, in addition to the $360,000 that I proposed, there'll be elimination of 7 additional positions impacting public safety, public services, and city hall. There'll be an imposed 2-week mandatory furlough for all non-union employees, reduction in the reserve account of $75,000, reduction in tourism account, further reduction in tourism account, reduction in youth activities, and reduction in human services account. Total overall cut $714,000. The resulting impact: reduction in city services within all departments, reduced police response time due to reduction of officers on shift, less police on critical shifts, nights, weekends, huge public safety concern, and more overtime expenses. Reduced DPW staff, less effective response to water and sewer breaks, long waits for basin repairs, street maintenance, grass cutting, plowing, things like sewer calls that these gentlemen go out on and do in people's homes that will no longer be available. It will take 3 or 4 days to get someone in. Employee morale becomes very problematic. Lowering reserve in the budget will provide less flexibility to handle budget shortfalls and emergencies. Reduction of the tourism account will allow for fewer community events, A mandatory furlough will cause additional and unnecessary hardship on employees and the residents. All city services will be reduced to unacceptable levels. Plan B, if the override fails, school system cuts. In addition to the $143,000, the following cuts are being considered, or would be considered. One school adjustments counselor, team leaders, head teachers, a possible institution for athletic fees if most athletics are offered, a music teacher, an art teacher, a librarian, student support center staff person, eliminate year-round guidance paraprofessional, eliminate drama, eliminate juvenile resource center, close the community transition program at Johnson School, possibly fees for pre-K and kindergarten, or reduce kindergarten to half a day. It's a very, very important program in the city of North Adams, and eliminate a career specialist. Possible impacts for many. Proposed cuts would change the face of the North Adams public school system for years. This would not be able to be replaced for years. Majority of extracurricular activities would be significantly reduced or eliminated. Sports, music, and drama. At-risk programs, including the alternative school at Johnson, juvenile resource programs, student support centers, and career placement would be eliminated. Valuable academic impact, such as AP honors, AP classes, honors, and elective programs would be at risk. Less classroom support, increased classroom sizes in all grade levels, undoubtedly. Fewer special education services, more study halls. Fewer library services, vast reductions in Title I services. Less student support and college application assistance and coordination. Because of the loss of services, we'd be setting ourselves up for additional special education costs to include placements, referrals, and services. Because of the cuts, our district would be far less attractive, sending many students to McCann or Bart. More students with choice out to other districts. We would undoubtedly lose money from students with choice into the district. This would increase our McCann and charter assessments and reduce our school choice revenues. Cuts, while they may look attractive to some in the short term, will actually cost the district money in the long term, putting our district in an even worse economic light. MCAS scores will undoubtedly decline and dropout rates will increase. This will have a devastating effect on those who utilize our schools and certainly will discourage families who want to locate. We talk first about our challenges, which are many. First and foremost, we have a balanced budget to balance. That's my task, balancing the budget. I've never lived in a fiscal environment like this where you run 4 successive cycles in a deficit mode. It wouldn't happen if we were business, you'd be out of business. And we have to build the strength of our budget to build the strength of our community. By doing that, we have to stabilize and grow reserves. I was talking to Senator Ben Downey the other day, and the state revenues are starting to pick up. And I asked him, I think it was 2008 or 9 when we had the 9C cuts, those mid-year cuts by the governor that were so significant. And I asked the senator, I said, with revenue starting to pick up, will the state give us some mid-year relief? And he said the state's focus right now with additional revenues is to fund the reserves, refund their reserves, the rainy day fund as they call it, or their capital, or their reserve fund. I have to work on an aggressive plan. This is very, very important. An aggressive plan to stabilize and over time reduce the commercial tax rate. This is not an option, but a necessity if we expect to grow. Our commercial tax rate right now is currently one of the highest in the state, and undoubtedly with the 2.5 override would be right up there again. And we have to find a way to reduce that for businesses to locate here. And there are ways we can do that. Super Walmart coming in. How do we take those revenues, those new revenues, and apply those to the commercial side of the house to keep that rate cauterized, so we start to find ways to reduce that rate. And we've only scratched the surface. We have to face the fact we have significant infrastructure issues. Water and sewer pipes, a DPW building that's aging, a public safety building that's aging, equipment, aging equipment, and millions of deferred maintenance. Our opportunities are more. The Partnership for North Adams is a public-private sector partnership between MCLA, Mocha, and the city intended to seek private investment dollars to promote growth and development. We're working hard on trying to get something more than private investment in the city. MCLA Center for Science and Innovation is a $50 million project that will even more prominently set MCLA apart from other public higher education institutions in Massachusetts and the greater Northeast. And as soon as we're done with the budget, and as soon as the college kind of settles down, we'll be engaging in conversations with college as to how that can help the city grow, how can that help our economy, what businesses might locate here because of the Science Center. We have a Super Walmart, Super Center on Route 8, continues to move forward and add much needed commercial tax revenue as well as new jobs and provide for other growth opportunities. We have engaged boards and commissions, fully appointed groups that are now working towards the betterment of this community. We continue efforts to market the city-owned land and buildings, to build reserves, and put property back on the tax roll. Planning process. Some like it, some don't. I do. For the past 16 months, my administration has been working very hard with Berkshire Regional Planning to create a working plan for development and growth of the city. This plan is well on its way, and community visioning exercises should begin this summer to engage the ideas of all citizens. Growing cultural and city events, from Wilco to Parties in the Park to Zumba dancing on Main Street, we continue to grow our events. And more things happening here. And we have our opportunities, we have great public services and a wonderful school system. All of what we must keep this intact. We need to keep it intact. Let me just finish up before questions by saying 2 years ago I was elected as the mayor.